What if the most dangerous weapon in Iran's arsenal was never a missile, a submarine, or a drone? What if the real threat was a single stretch of coastline that allowed all of those weapons to exist at the same time? Because on a map, Bandar Abbas looks almost ordinary. A port city on the northern edge of the Strait of Hormuz, cargo ships, oil terminals, fishing boats, industrial facilities, but zoom in closer, and the picture changes. Satellite images reveal something different. A military ecosystem hidden inside a commercial harbor. Submarine pens buried along the shoreline. Missile storage facilities protected behind concrete barriers. Fast attack craft waiting in sheltered waters. Common buildings connected to a network designed for one purpose: control the narrowest, most important maritime corridor in the world, the Strait of Hormuz. And this creates the first contradiction. Iran does not need to defeat the United States Navy in a traditional battle. It only needs to create enough uncertainty that the world begins questioning whether ships can safely pass through this waterway. Because sometimes a navy does not need to win a battle. It only needs to make everyone afraid of one. And that is why Bandar Abbas became the center of attention. Not because it was Iran's biggest city, not because it was its largest port, but because it was the brain behind a strategy built over 4 decades. A strategy based on a simple idea: if you cannot match a superpower ship for ship, force that superpower to fight differently. The hero of this story is not a battleship. It is not a missile. It is not even a single weapon system. The hero is a place, Bandar Abbas, a military fortress disguised as a port. And the question surrounding it is, can one geographic location give a smaller power enough leverage to challenge the world's most powerful navy? To understand why this harbor mattered, you have to go back, because Bandar Abbas was never important only because of what was inside it. It was important because of where it was. Look at the Strait of Hormuz from above, a narrow passage of water connecting the Persian Gulf to the wider world every day. Enormous quantities of energy pass through this corridor. Oil tankers, natural gas shipments, commercial vessels carrying the fuel that powers global economies. Thousands of miles away, traders watch energy markets react to every movement in this region. A single attack, a single mine, a single missile launch, and prices can move across continents. That is the hidden power of geography. A small area can create a global effect. And Iran understood this better than almost anyone. After the 1979 revolution, Tehran faced a strategic problem. The United States possessed aircraft carriers, advanced aircraft, satellites, and a global military network. Iran could not compete symmetrically, so it built something else: a layered defense, fast boats instead of large fleets, coastal missiles instead of expensive surface combatants, mines instead of traditional naval dominance, small submarines instead of nuclear-powered attack boats. The idea was not to control every ocean. The idea was to make one narrow ocean passage extremely dangerous. And for decades, Bandar Abbas became the command center of that strategy. But here's the problem. A strategy built around hiding has a weakness. Eventually, someone tries to find what you are hiding. Inside the harbor, Iran concentrated many of its most valuable maritime assets. The Iranian Navy and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operated from the same strategic area. Different forces, different missions, but one geographic advantage: the ability to project power directly into the Strait of Hormuz. Among the most visible symbols of this ambition was the Shahid Bagheri, a converted commercial vessel transformed into Iran's first drone carrier. From the outside, it looked unusual: a massive flight deck, large support areas, space for unmanned aircraft operations. A floating symbol of Iran's attempt to move beyond coastal defense and toward regional power projection. But the ship also revealed a deeper contradiction. The more ambitious a military platform becomes, the more valuable it becomes as a target. A hidden missile launcher can disappear. A large command ship cannot. A submarine can hide underwater. A drone carrier sitting at port creates a very different problem. Visibility creates vulnerability. And this is the challenge modern militaries constantly face. The weapons that create the most influence often become the weapons enemies most want to destroy. The same thing that makes a system powerful can make it dangerous to keep. But Bandar Abbas was never only about ships. The part most people miss is that the real strength of the harbor came from everything connected to it. Maintenance facilities, command networks, fuel storage, radar systems, personnel, repair infrastructure. Because a military base is not powerful because of what sits there today. It is powerful because of what it allows a country to do tomorrow. A submarine without maintenance is just steel. A missile without targeting information is just metal and explosives. A ship without logistics is just a floating object. The hidden battlefield begins there, not with weapons, with systems. And that is why the opening strikes against Bandar Abbas carried such significance. The objective was not simply to destroy ships, it was to attack the machinery that allowed those ships to matter. When the first waves of attacks began, the world saw explosions. Fire rising from naval facilities, smoke above the harbor, ships damaged at their berths. But the deeper question was different. What was actually being removed? Because destroying a platform is one thing. Destroying the ability to regenerate that platform is something else. And this changes everything. A navy can replace a boat, but replacing the industrial system behind that boat takes years. That distinction separates tactical damage from strategic pressure. A battlefield victory destroys something that exists. A strategic campaign tries to prevent something from existing. Again, and that was the logic behind focusing on Bandar Abbas. The United States was not only targeting Iran's current naval power, it was targeting the infrastructure that allowed future naval power to return. But even that was only the visible layer. Because Iran had spent 40 years preparing for exactly this kind of attack. The underground facilities, the distributed missile sites, the small boats hidden along the coast, the ability to survive even after losing major assets. Everyone looking at the harbor saw the same thing: ships, buildings, weapons, but they were missing something. The real question was never, how many Iranian ships can survive a strike? The real question was, can a military network survive after its center is attacked? And that question leads to the deeper story. Because Bandar Abbas was never just a naval base. It was the physical foundation of Iran's entire strategy for controlling the Strait of Hormuz. A strategy built on geography, technology, energy, and uncertainty. The first battle was fought against concrete and steel. But the next battle would be fought against something much harder to destroy. The ability to rebuild. Everyone thinks this battle is about ships, missiles, and naval bases. But the real battle is about something much harder to see. Control, not control of the water itself. Control of decisions. Because the most powerful weapon in modern warfare is often not the weapon that destroys the target. It is the weapon that forces the enemy to change what they are willing to do. And that is the deeper meaning behind the campaign against Bandar Abbas. The United States was not simply trying to sink ships. It was trying to change the strategic calculation of an entire country. The question was never only, can Iran launch an attack? The question was, can Iran still convince the world that it can? That difference matters. Because military power is not just measured by what a country owns. It is measured by what others believe that country can do. And this is where the story of Bandar Abbas moves from a naval battle into something much larger. A battle of perception, a battle of intelligence, a battle. Look again at the harbor, not from the perspective of a ship commander, from the perspective of an intelligence analyst. A satellite image shows a pier, a radar installation, a maintenance building, a submarine facility. But behind every structure is a question. What does this allow Iran to threaten? And more importantly, what happens if that capability disappears? This is why infrastructure became the target. Because a military force is not a collection of weapons. It is a living system. Remove one piece, and the rest begins to weaken. A submarine requires maintenance. A missile requires targeting. A drone requires communications. A fleet requires fuel. A commander requires information. The weapon is only the visible part. The invisible battlefield is everything that allows the weapon to exist. And this is the lesson of Bandar Abbas. A fortress does not remove vulnerability. It changes where vulnerability lives. For decades, Iran believed that geography could compensate for technological disadvantages. The narrow waters of the Persian Gulf, the islands near the shipping lanes, the shallow coastal environment. All of these created natural advantages. A large aircraft carrier group is powerful in open oceans. But narrow waters create a different problem. Small weapons become more dangerous. Cheap systems can threaten expensive ones. A small boat carrying explosives can force a billion-dollar ship to change its behavior. This is the logic of asymmetric warfare. The weaker side does not try to become stronger. It tries to make strength expensive. But here is the contradiction. Asymmetric warfare works best when the stronger side cannot locate the threat. Once the hiding places become visible, the advantage begins to disappear. And that is why intelligence became just as important as firepower. The destruction of command facilities and senior leadership was not only about removing individuals. It was about revealing something deeper, the ability to find them. Because a commander can be replaced, a ship can be rebuilt. But when an opponent demonstrates that it can repeatedly see inside your decision, making structure, the psychological effect is much larger. Every military leader begins asking the same question. Who is watching? Who knows? How secure is the information? The battlefield becomes psychological, and uncertainty begins moving in the opposite direction. For years, Iran used uncertainty as a weapon against others. Now, uncertainty was returning, but this time against Iran. And then came the moment that revealed how warfare itself is changing, the attack on the submarine maintenance facility. Because this was not a traditional naval strike. It did not require a massive warship. It did not require a long-range bomber. It came from something much smaller, an unmanned surface vessel, a sea drone, a relatively inexpensive autonomous platform entering a heavily defended harbor. This was not just an attack on a facility. It was a demonstration of a new military reality. 6. The cost of attacking strategic infrastructure is falling. For decades, the assumption was simple. High-value targets require high-value weapons, aircraft carriers, cruise missiles, stealth aircraft. But autonomous systems are challenging that assumption. A small drone may not defeat a navy, but it may be able to disable the infrastructure that navy depends on, and that changes the calculation. Because now the question becomes, how much does it cost to defend everything? A country may build underground bases, but can it protect every entrance, every maintenance site, every communication node, every logistics hub? Modern warfare is becoming a competition between concentration and vulnerability. The more a military concentrates capability into important locations, the more valuable those locations become. The more valuable they become, the more attention they attract. This is the paradox of military power. Strength creates targets. And that is why the future battlefield may not be decided by the biggest explosion. It may be decided by who can disrupt the enemy's system faster than the enemy can repair it. The bigger picture goes beyond Iran, because every major military power is watching this conflict. China is watching. Russia is watching. Nations with smaller militaries are watching. The lesson is not simply about Bandar Abbas. The lesson is about the future of military competition. A country does not need to defeat an opponent's entire force. It may only need to attack the connections between that force, the ports, the factories, the data networks, the maintenance systems, the supply chains, the invisible infrastructure behind visible power. This is why energy is part of the story. The Strait of Hormuz is not important because of the ships that pass through it. It is important because of what those ships represent: global economic stability, industrial production, transportation, national security. A conflict in this narrow waterway is never only regional. Every disruption sends signals through global markets. Every threat changes calculations far away. An oil trader in Europe, a manufacturer in Asia, a government planning energy reserves. All of them are connected to decisions made thousands of miles away. That is the hidden power of geography. A single coastline can influence the entire world, but geography alone is not enough. Technology determines who can exploit it. And this is where the future becomes uncertain, because the next conflict may not look like the wars of the past. It may not begin with fleets meeting in open water. It may begin with invisible attacks on infrastructure, cyber operations, autonomous systems, precision strikes, economic pressure, information warfare. The battlefield is expanding, and the definition of victory is changing. A country can lose ships and still fight. A country can lose bases and still resist. A country can lose equipment and still maintain political will. So the final question is not simply whether Bandar Abbas can be destroyed. The deeper question is whether a military strategy built around survival can survive when the enemy begins targeting the system itself. Because every fortress has a weakness. Sometimes it is the wall, sometimes it is and sometimes it is everything keeping the fortress alive. The question is no longer who has the larger navy. The real question is who can adapt faster in a battlefield where technology, economics, and intelligence are becoming more powerful than individual weapons. Do you believe future wars will be decided by the destruction of enemy forces or by the ability to break the systems that keep those forces alive?